So on Sunday night, we had Professor Mark Cohen introduce this series. And what we're looking to achieve over the next 3 weeks is develop a better understanding of mindfulness and also some very real methods of applying mindfulness into our life. And I'm going to talk about this generic term mindfulness for a moment, just to pretend we all know what the word means, and say that the reason why we want to do this is because the studies that are coming out and have been coming out over the last 30 years demonstrate that increasing our states of mindful being is actually something that leads to lower stress, improved thinking, improved feeling, and just in general a higher level of well-being. So we now know mindfulness is important, and if you didn't know, well, just read any newspaper because that's what they're all telling us. But the question is, what is mindfulness? So we had a wonderful lecture here the other night with Professor Mark Cohen, and this is a series on mindfulness, but what is it? And instead of asking everyone to raise their hand if they know what it is, I'd like to ask, raise your hand if you feel that you don't quite know what the word means because it seems to mean so many things to so many people. So just raise your hand if you feel mindfulness is actually some generic word now. And raise your hand if you feel, no, it's a very precise word. It has one very specific meaning, and you'll find universal definition across all Wikipedia entries, all Google definitions. And the truth is that there are very specific definitions to mindfulness. The thing is that all the different specific definitions don't all line up. And that's because it's a word that is not a true word. It's a word that has been adopted to translate many words from many different cultures and languages. Generally, when we talk about mindfulness, we're talking about states of awareness, an awareness of our being, doing things with intention. But then again, people talk about mindfulness as having no intention, just having no thought right now, just being still. It has to do with all sorts of things to do with that, and then you'll get the people who go down the other line. And I'm not really going to take care of that because all these definitions are correct. It just depends who you're talking to. Are you talking to a Buddhist monk, or are you talking to a spiritual Jew, or are you talking to a practitioner of any of the Hindu traditions, or are you talking to someone who spent time in Tibet? Are you talking to someone who's from, I don't know, Massachusetts perhaps, who studied in MIT? Because each one's going to have a different mindfulness definition. The question is, why am I talking about mindfulness? Well, besides the fact that I'm the director here and I give a lot of the classes here, it's something that, although we've got next week Marvin Oka, and then the week after that Roz Ben Moshe speaking about mindfulness from different perspectives and how to apply it in our lives, which is what we're trying to achieve in this series, we felt that this particular series, it's really important to have an understanding of mindfulness from a Jewish spiritual perspective. And the reason is because the Jewish spiritual perspective to mindfulness, or mindfulness as it fits in our tradition, is something that a lot of the research that exists today, the research would support a lifestyle that is in tune with the spiritual approach to living mindfully in our tradition. And that's what I'd like to talk about tonight. And it's so practical that I guarantee you that you're going to laugh at certain points by the things that I'm going to say. You're going to be like, are you for real? That's yeah, I suppose so. Just never thought about it like that. And I'm going to give you some really creative places to meditate where you just never thought meditation should or could take place. So let's begin. In our tradition, there is a goal to live with 24/7 awareness, to have an awareness of the positive, infinite energy that fills every moment and every action in every corner of the universe. And our whole life is a journey of discovering that, and as we discover it, to hold on to the consciousness of that. And if you want to know more about that, come on a Monday night, because that's where we explore the spirituality. What it is that we want to achieve tonight is, well, how do I maintain a state of awareness, and why should I? Well, the reason why we should is because we're going to start off actually with a little fun activity, and you'll already see why. I want you to find someone to talk to. So just see if the person next to you is willing to talk to you. And don't start talking to them just yet. Just get their approval that they're willing to talk. You can't do this in groups of more than two, because there's a very, very clear set of activities that we're trying to do here. So just identify who is person A and who is person B. Just that can take a few minutes. So just establish who's going to be A and B. Okay. So are we ready? So person A, being by the sheer virtue and good luck of their adoption of this letter, will go first, and person B will go second. Person A is going to talk for 60 seconds about their dream holiday. Person B is just going to listen. Okay? Now, as person B listens, I'd like you to do something. As you're listening, I want you to notice every time you start tuning out of what this person is saying. Either because you've gone on your own holiday, or you've noticed a mole on their forehead, whatever it is. Okay? I'm telling you this before you even start, because I know what's going to happen. So I'd like to ask person B to actually now start talking and tell the dream holiday. I have just swapped it so you're not overly prepared. Person B, start talking about your holiday, and person A, start observing. "30 seconds left." Okay, and we'll call that time. So I've got a few questions. I've got a few questions for person B. Okay, person B, did you find that at any point while you were trying to talk about your dream holiday, you were concerned about the time? About how much time you had left to speak, or whether you're going to be able to fill the time? Yeah, so while you're talking... No? Okay, so basically, while talking about your dream holiday, you were more concerned, many of you were more concerned by silly things like what other people were doing, how much time you had left. It's like you can't even get to Hawaii without being concerned about the person right next to you. Person A, how easy was it to listen? Yes? And were you present? Could you honestly use the word that you were present for the 60 seconds? Okay, good. All right. Okay. So, okay. All right. I know that there are a lot of A's that would like to tell their story, but why didn't you guys hook up for coffee? You've made friends. This is good. Came to Spirit Grow, joined a community. Very positive move. So let's just consider this for a moment. If mindfulness is the ability to be absolutely present in the moment right now, which is the generic, general understanding of that term, and it is the way we use the word mindful as a figure of speech, as a term, as a phrase. We say, "Oh, I'm trying to be more mindful right now," as in I'm trying to be immersed in this moment. Even though I pointed it out to you, you still, probably many of you still drifted. Now, had I not pointed it out to you, you would have said, "No, I was listening the whole time." We almost start making up that we're mindful. Yes, I was present. But in truth, we're actually not really present. And it's not that I'm telling you that because I noticed something tonight, but that's what the studies have been showing. The studies that are going on in universities all around the world show that we're all a little ADD when it comes to listening and talking, and that our minds do drift. I don't know who has ever been to a lousy movie, but the definition of a lousy movie is that you sit there noticing all the problems. You like, that is a horrible piece of acting. Oh, that is so fake. Oh, the music is so off. The volume is too loud. The screen is too bright. Who shot this? Who edited it? A lousy movie is one which can't draw you in. And a good movie is one that does draw you in. Pardon? Lousy conversation, exactly the same. I'm just using movies as a good example. So lousy conversation allows us to move away. But what if that really boring, lousy conversation is a very important piece of information? What if, God forbid, that's a person's, not yours? What if it's someone's oncologist telling them something, but that oncologist happens to be really deadpan? It's like, Margaret, I just want to... I want to tell you about the results that you've been having. Now, many people, no matter how deadpan that oncologist is just going to be super zoned in. And if that oncologist was actually just a professor of mathematics doing some talk at some local maths festival that you've decided to attend, you'd be gone in 7 seconds. So there are certain things that will heighten our awareness and we will be forced to be focused, but more often than not, life is not like that. Not spouses, not partners, not children, not parents. They don't have that sway over us. But it is so important that we are. So take me, for example. I'm a parent. I'm a parent that often has kids talking to me, and this is what it sometimes sounds like. And it's not because I'm 6 foot and they're 2 foot. It sometimes just sounds like this. Tati, Tati, Tati. Now, I'm there. I'm physically there. But I've just had a very hard day or whatever. This is the 10th time they're sharing this interesting piece of information that I'm not aware of. But what is the message that my child is hearing? They're hearing, Tati, you're like never, ever listening to me. So I've got a child, in this example, growing up, speaking and not being heard. Now, how does he know or she know that they're not being heard? Because there is no facial expression. There is no feedback coming off from my body language for them to feel heard. Now, what happens to a child who has not heard their whole childhood by their parents? Well, all sorts of things. Anything from being very normal to becoming chainsaw murderers. It's a full spectrum, really. There's no excuse for any behavior. But we do know that a child who is not receiving that feedback is actually highly disadvantaged. It's emotionally disadvantaged. It's not fair to them. It's a rough world when you're not feeling heard. Now, what about when you've been trying to labor a point to someone very important to you and you can just see they're drifting? Well, how does that make you feel? So we can see that just in the context of a conversation, having the strength and the stamina to be present is actually really important. And sometimes there won't be anything there to hook you in. You won't have good music, you won't have good acting to draw you in, or you won't have some very serious piece of news to sharpen your senses. And in fact, most of life is like that. Just who here is one of those drivers that has ever driven and wondered, how did I get here? Yeah, like I know I took this route, but I don't recall crossing Kooyong Road. I hope it wasn't red. So, excuse me, that's the common example given for mindfulness in the car. So, and just think about that. They talk about if you text and drive, you can kill people. Well, guess what? People aren't mindful when driving can kill people. Because someone who doesn't remember whether they cross Kooyong Road or not is already going to be hampered when they have to slam on the brakes because eventually something sharpens their senses and catches their eye. So here I'm using mindfulness to demonstrate it's really important for relationships, and it's actually also really important for road safety. But let me go a step further. Who here has ever done this? Is today the 17th? Oh no. I had tickets to something last night. or is it 10 o'clock? I've got an appointment. 3 minutes ago it started. You know, where did time go? It was a complete loss of focus of what was going on here and now. So this is how the generic mindfulness teachings of today, and there's a very cute line because a lot of mindfulness from today comes from Buddhist teachings. Although nothing that you're going to get from me tonight comes from a Buddhist background because I haven't studied Buddhism. I've read a bit, but let me just give you a caveat. Anyone that tells me that they spent time in India and they really found it enlightening and they've experienced it, but although it's not for them, and I then say, and how long was your trip to India? And they say, oh, 6 weeks. Anyone that tells me they were in India for 6 weeks and they have seen it all, I just nod very consciously and I go, I'm sure it was a very enlightening experience, because we all know that we can learn religions in 3 weeks because the other 3 weeks we were traveling all around the countryside. We can't learn things just because we read a book or just because we spent time in a society for a few days or weeks. We get a glimpse, we get a bit of knowledge. So I may have read a bit about Buddhism, but I don't know Buddhism, and I'm not a Buddhist. However, contemporary mindfulness definitely came from a lot of Buddhist and Indian Eastern teachings of the contemporary mindfulness movement. And there's a cute phrase that gets bandied about, which is that mindfulness doesn't need Buddhism, but Buddhism needs mindfulness. And the reason why that's a very important phrase is because it indicates where the emphasis is. Mindfulness doesn't need Buddhism is basically saying that we've stripped an element away from a culture and said, well, that works for us. We're going to just own that, but we don't need the rest of it. But when we say Buddhism can't exist without mindfulness, is that we realize mindfulness is just a component of something much larger. So too in our tradition. Having a mindful state of existence is a very, very important component, but it is only a single component in a much broader spiritual narrative. And what I'd like to do is draw on how mindfulness plays such a crucial role so that we can be better drivers, better lovers, better parents, better communicators, better holiday tellers, better listening to someone's holiday story. Because I guarantee you someone is going to need to talk to you one day, and you're not going to particularly realize the importance of listening, and you will get lost on the mole on their forehead or whatever it is, because you don't realize you don't realize that they are actually an oncologist with very important information. They come across as just some random person on a tram who decide to start talking to you. Little did you know that they're going through absolute grief, and you might be the last straw before they jump. And really, we must consider moments like that. We must say, unless you are going through a moment where you just can't be available to other people, which is you're entitled to, we should be always available to other people. It's called chesed, that kindness, that being available. So how do we achieve mindfulness? So people raise their hands. Oh, I know. We achieve mindfulness by sitting and meditating and focusing on our breathing and really strengthening the mind. But the truth is, that is a mindfulness exercise, but I could just as easily tell you, why don't you go for a walk? A mindful walk, which looks something like this. You don't get very far when you do this, by the way. And what it is feeling every point of contact, movement of the muscle, the bend of the toe, the tension in the leg, and then the raising as you fall forward and then pick up the next leg, and you become really present with every movement. And what we're actually trying to achieve in such an exercise is not walking mindfully, but living mindfully, being very, very present with what is going on according to what we need to be present with. So someone might be saying, well, I can't actually look at the traffic lights right now because I'm focusing on this. This is where higher awareness comes in, and what we call in Hebrew seichel, logic. We need to be able to say, this is what I need to be mindful of right now. This is what I need to be aware of right now based on a higher understanding of a situation. So it's not, I need to just walk really slowly. I need to watch the little red man or the little green man on the traffic light. But I need to be aware. I can't just cross the road and go, oh, red, sorry. How many of you have ever done that? Just walked into an intersection and been honked and you realize, well, I'm lucky I'm alive right now. That is just not safe living. And we can change that. We can change when someone gives us a phone number, we go, 0417, what did they say? 0417, forgotten it. We can extend our memories. We can improve our thinking. We can improve our empathy. We can improve our emotions, all the different things that they say mindfulness does. It actually does. What we need to do is start employing it. So people say, but I haven't got time for more meditation. So what I want to do tonight with you is not meditate. This is the mindfulness class that doesn't have meditation, although we will do a bit of meditation in this class. The first activity we just did of talking is already something that we can practice. You can talk to someone. In fact, I'd recommend it, and just every day, make sure that in one of your conversations, you're actually listening to them. Not you're listening to how you're responding to them, but you're actually listening to them and suspending your response until they finish talking. And then you stop and you think, how am I going to respond? But that's much later in the day. Mindfulness doesn't start when you meet the first person of the day, even if that person sleeps right next to you. Mindfulness starts at the very, very, very moment that we open our eyes. And what I'd like to do is point out opportunities throughout the day. We're going to be playing a game. It's called Life. It's a fantastic game. No one loses, just some people don't play as well as others. Well, yeah, but that doesn't really bother anyone, except the people left on the board. The people who move on, they're quite happy with that. So everyone's a winner. A bit morbid. So this game of life starts from the moment we open our eyes in the morning. And everything I'm actually going to tell you is built around the prayer system in Judaism. Now, we're not actually going to go through any of the prayers tonight because that's not what we're trying to achieve tonight. But the prayer system in Judaism is fascinating because it is written as a narrative of understanding the human psyche and moving it into a higher into a higher consciousness, moving it into an other-centeredness. And the way it does that is by making the person become aware of who they are, then becoming aware of what they are, then becoming aware of where they are, and then becoming aware of why they are, and then stopping the what, who, where, and why, and moving into the context until eventually we suspend our ego. But we're not even going there because that's a Monday night. But what I'm pointing out is that our tefillah, the prayer, the meditative journey throughout the day is what we're going to go through tonight. So it starts when we wake up. And the very first thing that we're meant to do when we wake up is nothing. Not jump out of bed, not get ready to start thinking, just nothing. Have a moment of appreciation. The moment is called Modeh Ani. And in that moment, we are meant to appreciate the fact that we woke up. Now, in order to appreciate the fact that you woke up, you have to become aware of the fact that you've woken up. And therefore, you sit up in bed and you just sit there, noticing the flavors in your mouth, as awful as they might be, the dryness of your throat, the gunk in your eye, the relaxed state of being. Or if you've woken up with a jolt, notice it. Already there's an exercise in mindfulness. It's a meditative experience called waking up. Already there. So what I'm giving you for the next period of this talk are just a whole lot of juncture points that you can check in with yourself. So the first one is when you wake up in the morning. So tomorrow morning when you wake up, you go, oh yeah, oh, awake. I'm meant to notice this. And see how radical it is, like how incredible it is. And maybe even allow yourself to go on some sort of flighty journey about, I was asleep. I was like a little bit dead in that process. And now I'm awake, I'm functioning. And it's incredible. And then you get up. And what's the first thing everyone does in the morning if they're semi-regular and healthy? What's the first thing? Don't be ashamed. Correct. We go to the toilet window. Oh, so you do that. And eventually when you get up, you go to the loo. And this is actually a place that a lot of spirituality takes place. Now, and that's why I told you we're going to laugh. Now, we have in our tradition a prayer for that very first moment of our day when we go to the toilet. And it is actually one of the most beautiful meditations you could do. And I'm going to recommend, well, you'll probably platz, which is the Yiddish word for explode. You'll probably laugh tomorrow. But in a week from now, when the joke of going to the toilet has worn off and it becomes quite a mundane experience, I want you to experience the miracle of going to the toilet, as in the magic of it. As in the realization that not everyone can do this. Not everyone can do this. Again, a moment of appreciation. Not everyone can. Not everyone can because of biological or physiological issues, the way they were born, or something that has happened to them in life. Oh, and we're not talking about the guilt. Just acknowledge that you're functioning. And then think about what has just happened. Over the course of the last 12 hours, you ate and drank, and you ingested, and your body was able to, on a microscopic level, break everything apart, move nutrients around, proteins, water, fluids, to all the appropriate parts of your body. And now you're expelling the waste. It's just a phenomenal concept, how the body has done this. And so the very act of going to the toilet is a call for heightened awareness. You know, we often think, oh, we should stop and smell the roses. I'm not saying to smell the roses here, unless you've got potpourri in the... But what I am saying is stop and notice that you're healthy. Stop and what if you're not healthy? What if you're one of the people in this room like, oh, that's actually not funny, Menachem, because I can't do that. Be aware of that. How does that make you feel? Is there upset? Is there angst? Is there healing that has taken place and an acceptance? Because right there is another point of really important awareness, because that is something that really does define us. I mean, if you go onto your app store, whether you've got an Android phone or an Apple phone, if you have any of the other phones, I don't know where you come from. But if you have one of those two popular operating systems and you go into your app store and type in public toilet finder, you will find so many apps. It plays such a key role in our life going to the toilet. It's such a money maker for some companies, evidently. And as a result, we shouldn't be going, oh no, that's not a place. The toilet can be a place. This isn't going to come out right, but it can be a place for that meditation. It's that place, not for the deep breathing meditation. It's the place for the heightened awareness. And therefore, item number 3 that you will find in the Jewish prayer book, in the meditative journey of the day, is appreciate and be amazed by the human body. Just appreciate that it operates and be amazed by it. You know, when we talk about that mindfulness, we've already haven't done anything in our day, and we're already experiencing appreciation, and we're already experiencing amazement. Now, what is the impact of this? Well, the studies show that when you practice either loving kindness meditation or empathy meditation, or there are so many different meditations to do all sorts of things, they have incredible results. So, a beautiful study that took place in America. they monitored 30 or 60, I don't know, I just can't remember the number, 30 or 60 kindergarten students over a 6-week period. In the beginning of the study, they gave the children, kindergarten age, a list of all their friends, photos of all their classmates. And they were given a select number of stars, stickers, and they were told, place stars next to your friends. The more friendly you are, the more stars you should place next to their face. The less friendly you are, the less stickers. And so most of the kids ended up with what you would expect of kindergarten children, which is the top few had like 1 million stars, and then 3 stars, and then 1 star, and then no star. A very unequal spread of stars, and most children had kids in their class that didn't get a star because they'd run out of stars. For the next 6 weeks, the children were participating in loving kindness meditation, designed for kindergarten age children. Loving kindness, practicing loving kindness in a 5 or 10 minute meditation experience on a daily basis. And at the end of the 6 weeks, they gave the children, once again, stars and a clean list of all their friends, and they said, please place stickers next to your friends. And what they found after 6 weeks is that no kids had drastically more stickers next to them, and all children got multiple stars all the way down the list. So we're talking about kindergarten-aged kids. We're not talking about that they realize what's going on and they cheated the system. That through the process of a loving kindness meditation journey, they had changed the personality and the mental responses within children. Now, we know that meditation and we know that that mindfulness exercises physically alter the brain. We know this because it's actually, you don't have to be a neuroscientist. You just need to be given 2 different charts of the human brain, and you can noticeably see in some images the difference between the brain before and the brain after over a 2 or 3 or 4 month period of meditation. Because there is a physical change to the human body as a result. Now, this was done. These studies are going on. I was invited to take part in a study at, I don't know, Monash or Melbourne, one of the two, for people who do mindfulness meditation. I didn't want to be a part of it because it was too much time commitment from me. To be a part of it, and there are plenty of people that do that. Don't need my brain. It wasn't like I was going to get to autograph it, and like for the rest of time, when you Google Menachem Wolf, took part in a Monash study. Yeah, but also there are plenty of people that could contribute, and I didn't have the time. But when I looked into what the study that was going on was, it was this. It was to measure my brain over a period of time. And it was, and these things are happening all over the world, these sorts of studies, and they're most interesting findings. Now, these studies actually began, some of these studies began by placing monks in the lab. They put monks under MRI and EEGs and all sorts of other methods of measuring magnetic fields in the body, mental changes within the brain, all sorts of studies, and the original guinea pigs were Buddhist monks, because in the 60s and the early 70s when this was taking place, there was a lot of fascination by the people of the East. And there were others. They weren't just Buddhist monks, but I'm referring to some studies that were with Buddhist monks. And that is actually how early mindfulness in the West began. Now, what this kindergarten study demonstrates is that through the practice of a meditation involving loving kindness, there is an outcome, a very, very positive outcome. And that study is the result of taking a spiritual individual and studying the way they were doing it. And what I've just proposed with the first 2 things is not do a loving kindness or an appreciation or empathy meditation. All I'm saying is live your life with a bit more empathy. Live your with a bit more gratitude, Have the gratitude. Wake up. Have the gratitude that you woke up. Have the awareness so you get all the benefits of being really present right now for a few minutes. Go to the toilet and once again experience gratitude. And what you'll find is there are all sorts of health benefits that come through and behavioral benefits that come through this practice. We're almost inversing mindfulness back into a spiritual system. And the reason why I'm doing that is because that is how I believe we should live life. We should try to be keeping it in a more holistic state rather than divorcing it from its source. So let's keep going. Let me take you through a day, because that's what tonight's lecture is about. So you come downstairs if you have an upstairs, or you walk out of your bedroom to the kitchen, or off the lounge room couch to the kitchen, wherever it is that you slept the night before, and you walk into the kitchen. And you will have the impulse to open the fridge. Now, most people open the fridge without realizing that they've opened the fridge until they've opened the fridge and discovered that whatever it was that they were looking for is not there. That's usually when we become aware that we've just opened the fridge. But what we can do is, before opening the fridge, just pause and become aware of how you're feeling. What is your expectation? What's the expectation when you open the fridge? Who has ever opened the fridge 3 or 4 times in a row thinking that things were going to change over the course of that opening and closing? I'm surprised that any women put their hands up, because generally it's men that have this very genuine moment of belief. But I'm impressed. I feel very comforted by the fact that it's not just 50% of the sexes on this planet, but actually all of us seem to struggle with the inability to accept. Now, generally you wouldn't use that as an acceptance meditation, but I don't want to use that as much as, have you become aware of your feelings before you open that fridge of what is it that you're about to do? Well, why are you opening the fridge? The paradise of oral gratification. You should write a book, because you've made breakfast sound very romantic. But it is that. It is. We're opening the fridge because we're about to take the milk out, or the yogurt, or the cheese, or a fruit, or a vegetable, or whatever it is. But be aware of the hunger. Be aware of the thirst. Because this is the first point of call for our conscious eating exercises for the day. Are we about to eat because of that's the habit? You come downstairs and you open the fridge and you do your coffee, or am I eating because I would like to nourish myself? And the truth is, it should always be the latter. It should always be the latter, because that's going to set you up for a much healthier eating experience. So you stop, you're in front of the fridge, and you go, right, I am hungry, or I am thirsty, or I have a bit of a headache, my caffeine addiction has kicked in. I'm going to open up the fridge, and that's okay. You know, if you've got it, you've got it. We're not here to heal anything, we're just here to observe. So you open the fridge and you do what you need to do. And you start thinking, well, what is it that I'm going to have for breakfast, and why? Am I into nutrition? Am I going to be cautious in how I eat, or do I not care? Just be aware of that. And you take the food out and you make yourself your breakfast, if you're having breakfast. And then you start eating. And as you're eating, pause, taste the food, chew the food. You know, do all those things that people talk about in a conscious eating exercise. All those things those people talk about, do it in your kitchen. Now, you're saying, Menachem, oh my God, had to wake up, had to go to the loo, then you wanted me to eat. But do you actually notice there is a thread here? There is a very common thread through these activities. It's not like, oh yes, this morning I did a conscious eating exercise, and I also did a morning gratification exercise. I also did a gratitude exercise. No, it's not. You see, you only have lots of exercises if you have lots of exercises. But if you're just living life, you don't have any exercises. Because what we're doing is we're reframing how we're living life. We're not changing anything. I didn't tell you don't eat the Frosties. I didn't tell you don't drink coffee. I didn't tell you don't sleep in. I didn't tell you not to drink the night before, and that's why you've got such a bad belly in the morning. You're just going through life. You see, we're not looking to change life. If we do, it's so hard. It is so hard to change life. You know, you start creating new habits, and we start creating new processes. It's like, oh, I do yoga, I go to the gym, I go to work, I've got 4 kids, I need to do this, I need to do that. I've got so many things that I need to do. It's very, very challenging now. You're telling me I've got to add mindfulness to the mix. But if we don't have to add mindfulness to the mix, if we're actually just altering slightly the way we're observing our life, we will reap incredible amount of benefit. Incredible. So we've got waking up, we've got going to the toilet, we've got the way we eat, the way we're approaching the fridge, the way we're approaching our meal. What are one of the obvious things that will be a byproduct of conscious eating? We eat less and we eat healthier. There's no guilt here. It's just you eat less and you eat healthier because you become more aware that you've become full. You become more aware of what you're eating. You become more aware of what you've learned about what you should be eating, and you just make more conscious choices. So all these important studies about conscious eating leading to better health, well, don't do conscious eating. Just allow the consciousness to exist while you are eating. So then you finish eating. Another good time for gratitude. Where did the food come from? How did it get here? Was there a farm involved? Was there a trucking company involved? Was there road building that had to take place? Was there a shipping line that had to take place? Was there the mining of iron ore in order to build this ship? Like, how did this food get here? An incredible amount of gratitude takes place in that thought process. And once again, we've now got 2 moments of gratitude, and our day hasn't even begun. And we haven't had to sit down to do a 25-minute gratitude meditation. I'm not mocking it, those meditation things. I'm looking to save you time, because people often struggle to find the time to meditate. And this mindfulness series is not about adding more work to the day. It's actually about freeing you up. So then we get dressed. Again, you're going to be aware of that. What are you wearing? Where did it come from? Was this made in a sweatshop? Now, even if it is, you're not about to buy a new wardrobe. So we can't get all caught up on ethics. Don't let ethics get in the way of a good spending habit. But in that process of where did your clothing come from? Who picked it? Who picked the cotton? Where was it made? Oh, it was made in Taiwan? Yeah, the chances are it was made by a lovely 20-year-old girl who was pregnant at the time. And I'm not looking for anyone to feel guilty. We're looking to feel empathy. Empathy. As I put on this garment, which I'm not going to throw out because I can't throw things out. I can't make those decisions right now. Maybe I'll do it later today. But right now, I'm just experiencing empathy. I'm experiencing empathy. Now, do you know that if you do 20 minutes of empathy meditation, if you do 20 minutes of conscious eating, if you do 20 minutes of gratitude, if you do 20 minutes of empathy, I've already got you on 60 minutes of meditation a day, which we don't have to be doing as a meditation if we're living it. So we put on the shirt, and we put on the cardigan, we put on the pants, we say, where was this made? And let's just stop and think. Has someone suffered in this process? Do I feel their suffering? Do I feel compassion for them? Do I feel sadness for them? Not do I feel guilt. We're not looking for guilt. You can discount that. That's not important right now. We're looking to get in touch. Because what happens when you start practicing empathy? It becomes vicious. You start empathizing with other people, not just the people you thought you did. You start becoming a better individual. People feel better around you because you can feel for them. Empathy is one of the most powerful connectors of human beings. Not sympathy, empathy. So now we're dressed. We haven't even begun our day. And we've already done we haven't done 60 minutes of meditation, but we have done something that if we maintain this, it'll be far better than 60 minutes of meditation. It'll be far better because we are living a life right now. We're living a life right now. And at any point you can stop. At any point you can stop and say, you know what, I just want to spend 5 minutes on this. Often we do mindfulness meditation. We just stop and be with our breathing. That's not the only way to be. You can be in a moment of empathy. Now, I don't know how that quite fits in with Buddhist teachings, but I can tell you from our teachings that this form of meditation, which would be the closest thing to Hitbonanut, which is non-intellectual contemplative meditation. So I'm not contemplating it. I'm not tearing it apart. I'm just being with the concept of empathy. I'm being with the concept of gratitude. I'm being with the food in this moment. If you do that for 5 minutes, it's not hard. It's not hard. I remember when I started doing meditation, I'd do it in the car. And at first it was really hard, but a few years in, sometimes, I'll do meditation a couple of times during the day, but sometimes I'll just do 5 minutes before I go into the house, let's say, at the end of the day. And I'll set the timer, and it will go off, and I'll be like, that's impossible that it's been 5 minutes. But not because I've been all over the world, but because I'm just really settled in this silence that time doesn't really seem to be passing. I just can't believe when it has ended. We can sit and be empathetic, but if you have to do it as a chore, it's going to be very challenging. But if we do it as a practice that is just a part of our life, because at this moment it has engaged me, well, then it's going to have a very, very profound effect. You're not going to find, my mind always wanders when I meditate, because you've allowed yourself to enter into this state of empathy. And then you can go through your day. You can go to work, and you can do the listening exercise. Are you listening? Are you listening to this other person, this Homo sapien that is also born of a mother, that is also born and has lived life? Are we giving space? Or is our ego forcing us to carve up our territory and not allow anyone in? How many conversations do we have with people that we don't want to allow them in? Or how many moments in our day do we feel threatened when someone walks into the room? Or how nervous do we get? Why? Is it ego? Or are we feeling threatened? Just having that position to be aware of will often offer so many explanations for why we are feeling the way we are feeling. I haven't forced anything yet onto you until now. And then you get to the middle of the day where you're feeling a little stressed or you're feeling a little challenged, and that's where you might take on a breathing exercise, a relaxation exercise. For those who are just at the meditation session before this mindfulness session, that's where that might come on. That tighten the muscles and just become aware of the tension in the body and breathe it out and just sit and breathe and be with your breath for a moment. It's a great relaxation response. It's a great way to just, and then afterwards comes the clarity of, why am I feeling the way I'm feeling? I believe that that's something that should take place at midday. Why? Because we actually have built into our tradition, it's called mincha. It is a midday ego check. It's a built-in midday ego check that we're meant to stop and pause and just be aware of, who am I? What's the context that I'm living? And why am I here right now? And those sorts of questions, when asked objectively, actually lead us to reframe our current goings on. Now, that's the first forced meditation in this whole day. And yet we could have already done 15, 20, 30 minutes of meditation in this day already. But now we're bringing ourselves to a point of where, I really should check in. I've been up for 8 hours already, or I've come in contact with X number of people already. I should really check in and just make sure I'm doing okay. And that is any one of those breathing exercises that helps with that. Come across people. There are so many different feelings, and that conversation activity that we just did is a perfect example of what we can be doing throughout the day in every single conversation that we're having. And then we come home. And if you're fortunate to be in a relationship, then there's the hug or the kiss. Now, there are two states of consciousness that we go through here. Do I want to give a hug or a kiss? Which is one, because often it's like, can't be bothered. Had a really rough day, not interested in sharing my love or anything. And then saying, is this the appropriate response? Has this person done anything to me that they should be the brunt of my frustrations of what has happened on the other side of the door? And there's that consciousness in the relationship. And then there is the actual contact, the hug. And in the hug is the holding. And how do you feel? How do you feel in that moment? And by becoming aware of how you feel, the hug will go just that little bit longer, and it'll be just that little bit more real, which leads to an improvement in the relationship. There is all sorts of great stuff taking place, and you can watch everything from TED Talks to reading the fascinating studies on hugging and kissing and physical contact. But we know that there are so many health benefits. But again, those health benefits can only be elicited if you have that moment of consciousness of, am I going to hug or kiss? Or when I hug and kiss, how do I feel? Am I feeling the hug? Am I feeling the touch? Am I feeling the contact? And that is so crucial. So crucial. And that might be to a child, that might be to a lover, could be whoever it is. And then we progress, we've got the meal again, we've got, there's so many things that repeat themselves over and over again. But then we get to the end of the day. We get to the end of the day, and instead of just collapsing and getting into bed, we go through one final check-in. How am I feeling? How was today? Acknowledge any baggage that has been picked up. Because that process of acknowledging is actually part of having a really high quality sleep. And when you do that acknowledgement, you may want to do a breathing exercise. But once again, there's a final gratitude. A final gratitude. I've lived another day. I'm not that much worse off. I'm not that much worse off. Yes, sure, sometimes we've lost a job. And yes, sure, we've sometimes got a mortgage or rent or credit card bill. But if we think about it, by and large, most people, day to day, in the privileged society that we live in, we actually aren't too bad most days. Most days. That's not to say we don't have rough days, but we aren't too bad. And to once again have that gratitude and that thanks for the good life that we've had today. And not, again, no guilt. I'm not thinking about all the poor Africans that didn't get the life that I got. I'm just being appreciative for what I do have. It's not about contrasting ourselves against others. It's just about acknowledging what we do have right now. And then with that, the returning of our soul, the going back to sleep, only for this to be repeated again. Now, the only hard part of this whole sequence is remembering to do it. Not remembering, of not being distracted from doing it. We actually live a life of distraction. And so often the natural response is, we must meditate. Well, that is a very good response. And I'm not one to say no, because we do so much of it here and I believe in it. But if you don't have the time for meditation, or you can't do all these meditations, well, then we go back to the spiritual lifestyle of our tradition, which is not a very meditative lifestyle, but it is a life lived in a constant meditative state, a state of awareness, a state of gratitude, a state of empathy, a state of consciousness, and a state of fulfillment and meaning in every moment. The beauty is that if we do one very, very little thing, we can move this from being my movie on life, which is where, unfortunately, some mindfulness teachings have gone. It's made people very self-centered in their mindfulness. If we just employ one idea, which is, as I experience this, all this is something that is being provided to me by the infinite. That infinite in Hebrew gets called Hashem or the Ein Sof, whatever term you want to use. But it is being consciously delivered, and I'm living my life in this moment because consciously the infinite wants me to. Well, then I'm not just observing my life, but I'm observing all the other beings that the infinite wishes to exist. So no longer am I just hugging my loved one, I'm hugging another component of the universe. I'm not only eating food and trying to taste it, but I'm actually consuming a part of the universe and asking myself, for what benefit? In what way will the rest of the universe benefit that I've just consumed part of it? It's not that I'm thinking about that poor girl in Taiwan or wherever it is, but I'm thinking about that other part of the infinite consciousness that is so beautiful. And just as I'm beautiful, so is she. That's what I'm thinking about when I put the shirt on. When I introduce not just my experience, but my realization that I am just as important as every other part, which means every other part is just as important as me, then it becomes an absolutely other-centered and enriching lifestyle. And that's what I'd like everyone to take out of tonight's talk. That mindfulness is not a task. It's just a slightly altered state of observing our moment-to-moment living. Okay. So next week, Tuesday night, is with Marvin Oka. Marvin is not only Australia's, but one of the world's leading NLP teachers, but he is going to be speaking to us about mindfulness as it relates to our the way we carry ourselves, the way we're expressing ourselves before we even open our mouth. So I hope that everyone can make it to next week. I know we're chock full with lots of programs, and some of you, this is your third night in a row at Spirit Grow. I've been worried about burnout. I haven't got a solution, so I'll see you tomorrow night. No, I'll see you whenever. Have a good night.